you.
Well, thank you. And I'm very, very happy to see all the beautiful people down here. Many other than the beautiful night television been saying all day that the wind chill is going to be 30 and 40 degrees below zero, and you all came out. I tell you, I love you and I thank you. And now, since we've been talking about 300th birthday in a way, I would like to say that I would like to talk about the United States Postal System. I've never done anything on it, and I hope I'll make a success of it tonight. Our postal system is really wonderful. When you get a letter through the mail carrier, puts one in a box for you, or you go to your post office and you get a letter from thousands of miles away, written by a friend or a relative, brings you all the news, how happy it makes you, and all their good wishes. Well, how did this ever happen anyway? Well, I learned that the United States Postal System developed from the postal system in Europe. The first postal system recorded in England was established during the reign of Henry VIII. And the first record of any post office in America was in 1639, when the house of Richard Fairbanks in Massachusetts was designated as a post office, and all the letters that were brought from overseas or around here to be sent were taken there and either distributed to whoever was they were sent to or were going to send them. That was the beginning. And then I find that our very first postmaster was Benjamin Franklin. And he is certainly a great man. And I looked him up, and it seems that he was born in Boston in 1706. And get this, folks, the 15th child in a family of 17. Wow! His father was a tallow candle maker, and he wanted his 10th son, who was Benjamin, to become a minister. But Ben didn't get the call, so instead he began to work for his older brother, who was a printer, and he learned the printer's trade. Well, he felt he didn't get along very well with his brother, so he went to Philadelphia, and he arrived almost penniless with just enough money to buy 3 big rolls. But he found work very soon because there were a few printers down there. And he worked for a while with a printer, and then he founded his own shop in Philadelphia. And he purchased in 1729 the Pennsylvania Gazette, a newspaper there in Philadelphia that he edited and wrote for it and published for many years. And this paper made him known all over the colonies. And so he finally was the first one to ever found an American public library there in Philadelphia. He established a postal service, a fire company, and a police system, and made so many improvements on the city of Philadelphia that it became known as the most advanced town in the whole colony. Well, time went on, and in 1653, he was appointed the Postmaster General of the colony, and he set out to make a system that was so well organized and served the public so well that it's gone along all these many hundreds of years, in a similar way. What he did was to establish milestones in all the post roads from Maine down to Savannah, Georgia. And these milestones were set up to accurately gauge the distance that a letter travels. And here in this particular area, the post riders from New York to Boston, to Albany, took 3 days. It took 3 days to come and 3 days to go back to New York. And the writer just got a few cents for each letter he delivered. And a military man had free privileges. He could mail anything he wanted to, free of charge. But the others, the distances had to be very closely gauged. That's why these milestones were set up. And it seems that a single page in a letter that traveled 30 miles cost 6 cents. One that traveled 10 miles, one that traveled 80 miles cost 10 cents. And then the next one was 12 and a half cents, and the next one up to $400 was 18 and 3/4 cents. And after that, after 400 miles, beyond that, it cost a quarter. And if the post rider came up and gave you a letter, and you didn't have the money to pay for it, you didn't get the letter. And I didn't think that was very good. And Franklin, though, down in Philadelphia, he was first to adopt a penny postage, and this paid for the service before that had been supported by the city before that. And then in 1775, he was made the Postmaster General. And I want to start here in our particular section because it's more familiar to us. But I want to say that Ben Franklin, when he was publishing the Gazette, he was also publishing the Poor Richard Almanac that said early to bed, early to rise, make the man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And also, an empty bag is hard to stand upright. And history repeats itself because he was advising young men to seek the companionship of older women. He said the older women were so grateful for their attention. Well, now things have repeated itself, history has, because I see on television very often about how younger men are marrying older women today. So that leads me to a story I heard. There was this young man fell in love with an older woman who had a beautiful voice, and when she sang, he was simply enchanted by her singing. Well, they got married, and on the honeymoon night, the bridegroom watched his bride take off her glasses, put them in a case on the dresser, take out her false teeth and put them in a glass on the dresser, and take off her wig, put it on the stand. And he said, the bridegroom said, "Honey, please sing." And that's how history has repeated itself, but I don't know how long it's going to last that way. Well, Benjamin Franklin, when he was became the first great Postmaster General, really did things great. And I will just start now with a young man's story about how he walked from Lower Manhattan in 1905, 159 miles up to Albany. And he found that he had passed 159 milestones. They were so beautifully installed on the west side of the road. They had the distance on them. The one in Fishkill had and York on it, 60 miles. And it went like that. So you could tell just how far a letter had been sent and how much it would cost. And he did some research, and he found that it had taken 6 years, from 1663 to 1669, to install all of those 159 milestones. And that was quite a job, but it made it very nice. Everybody could tell where they were and where they were going. And I think we had one here, I know, Charlie Marshall, when he was alive, had a milestone right near his house, and he named his house Milestone. But it's since been torn down. And of course it must have cost quite a bit of money, but they did it. And then of course things began to improve, and finally they got rural free delivery. Then from the post offices and different places, they would have a certain district where the postman would go around, and we still have it, and deliver things. And that reminds me of a story I heard about a Scotchman who lived in a crowded city, and his wife was going to have a baby. So he moved out in the country because he heard there was rural free delivery out there. Well, you see, it's all gone over big, on every improvement. And so that is the way. And now we have stamp collectors and stamp clubs, and even the late President Roosevelt has in his honor a stamp club. And we can send letters all over the world at a cost that we can afford to pay. And there's a lot of room for improvement yet, and this world will go on improving. We hear so many negative stories, and oh dear, so many depressing things on the television, but also good ones. And there always will be something that will make things better. For instance, I heard, and nobody will believe me when I tell it, maybe you people won't either. There's a person that's working on an automobile that will be run by air. How he's going to do it, I don't know, but I got a lot of hot air that I think I could use or get somebody. And if you want to know all about everything, you want to listen to Phil Donahue's program on Channel 4 at 9 o'clock on weekdays. And he showed something a couple weeks ago that was absolutely fantastic. And it's a great consolation to older people, I should think, who might think they're going to get a stroke, or somebody that's been in an automobile accident. He had a girl who was paralyzed from the waist down in an automobile accident. And she had braces on, and he had a research doctor there, and they had worked out a computer that they put in her body somewhere, and it sent the electric impulses that her normal nerves would have sent if they weren't paralyzed. And she walked up and down between parallel bars, and she rode a bicycle, and they said that there was no limit to what that computer could do as it gets more and more developed. That people with a stroke, or people with MS, or people that have had some terrible injury in an accident would someday be able to get a computer and put it in and get around more or less normally, like the heart pacers they have now that causes people to survive a long time. after their heart would otherwise give out. So I think that that is very, very interesting, and I'd like to leave this talk on the happy note that in the next 300 years in the state of New York, we're going to see many more wonderful and thrilling and beautiful things. So don't be upset by all the negative things you hear today, because there are better days are coming. And I hope the next time we meet here, the weather will be better. And I want to thank you all for coming, and I have been so happy to see you here. And I thank you for coming, and I'll say not goodbye, but good night till the next time. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
I thank you for having me.
That's
Does anyone else want to say something? I'd like to hear as much talk as I could.
you were talking about the milestones, and I remember
Yes.
we used to have a lot of them around here. And the one up at Marshall's, I think that's still in the stone wall up there. It was the last I knew. When you go from the, I don't know whether you ever noticed or not now, I'm going up Route 343 from Altamont driveway.
Yeah?
On over top of the hill is not where it originally was. Where it originally was right through the gate at Breeze Hill, right straight up front there, and came out right on top of the knoll, up above Dr.
Adams?
Adams' place, and by Guy Simpson, we went right straight up through there. And Mrs. Standish and the Marshalls thought when they put the road in, they didn't want it quite so close to the house. It would make a lot of noise with the cars, so they made a deal, and Miss Lamont gave them a chunk of her land over in the meadow there. They put that bend in the road and over through Miss Lamont, so it wouldn't go right in front of their houses. Now they're all dead, and we got a crooked road. So that's the way these things come out all the time. Just like down here in Bennett, we got that mess down through that rock. Everybody that had anything to do with it, gone. You got to suffer for it.
I hope you're getting that note.
However,
Yeah, I did.
Great.
Yeah, what I mean, yeah, that's what
yeah, probably that was on the seat. There was one in Hartsville too. That being, they put them on the turnpikes, and as you most of you probably know, they came out the Dutchess Turnpike, and they were all the way out through here, and then at what you now call 44A, the Sharon Turnpike. That's where it branched and went through Harts Village and Mavisville and Lithgow and Armenian to Sharon. So that was milestones.
Wow.
And then straight ahead, what we know is 44 was the Dover Turnpike. It went through South Millbrook, which was Washington Four Corners, and through Mechanic, which was over by the Meeting House, Little Rest, and over to Dover, and that had a milepost on it. And I know the one up in front of Marshall stood free there for years up there, and it was on well, it would be on the right-hand side of the straight road that goes up through. But it would be on the left of what's 343 now. And they took it, when they put the road in there, Marshall took it and they put it in the stone wall. And I think it's still in there. There's a gate in the wall there that used to go in the garden there. And I think it's somewhere near that gate. I haven't looked at it there recently, but I think that's where it is. And a lot of them, around Hyde Park, they've been very concerned with them, and they've been restoring them and encasing them in stone frame and fixing them all up with new stones and new mortar.
They're putting all the old walls back
Putting a
too.
lot of the old walls back. It's a thing that's well worth doing, except that not too many people are in a position to do it. They don't have the skills, they don't have the time and the money, but it's a nice thing to do. And the milestones should have been preserved. A lot of them got broken up, and used them for foundation stones or filled or something, didn't want them anymore. It's like, I didn't know it until we started doing a history of our church up there. I didn't know this until we started that in 1979. But up in the buttress there on the northeast corner, there's a cornerstone that has already been in two churches. This is the third place it's been. It was a cornerstone of the original church in Harts Village, which burned very shortly after it was built. I've only lived here about 2 years, I guess. Then, when they came down to Millbrook and built the one that most of us know was the Grange Hall, it was put in there, and it's carved 1871 on it. And then when they built the present church up there, they took it out of there, and they put it in that buttress up there, and the 1871 side is still showing.
Well,
The one by the door says 1901, which is a proper, fancy cornerstone. But this one is just a big granite stone, and somebody cut it in there with a cold chisel, I guess, by the looks of it. So when the weather's good sometime, I didn't give a good look at it. I don't know what the other side says. That's inside the wall. That was 1866 anyway. So that's probably what's on there. So these stones, they get moved around, they get used. You see, these milestones have all, a lot of them been, used them for mill or whatever.
It was 1866 when the first church was built.
Yeah, one ours was. We found all that out. We were looking things up that time, you remember?
Yeah, how well we remember, huh?
That's fine.
There's a stone next to the diner that has a date on it. It looks like it was a pedestal for a statue. It's 1800 and something, right next to the diner, between the diner and the department store.
Yeah.
Brown stone with a sort of temple.
I think I remember, Bob, that I think was, if I remember correctly, there was an article in the Poughkeepsie Roundtable during the bicentennial, and I think that that stone, who is the wing boy that Peter was it that did it? I think, now I could be wrong, I think I remember reading in the Roundtable that he found that over in Dover someplace, and I believe it's 1871.
wow.
And he moved it to the area it's in now during the year of the bicentennial. I think kind of made it like a donation to the village or something.
It isn't
It's like a carriage. It's a carriage that, yes. Well, it's, you get off of a carriage and step down, yeah.
They used to make those sort of
Yeah, it is an oval shape.
a large radius, but not straight across, not a square, not an oblong.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
Perhaps
They set them up with the outside of the circle toward where your wagon comes in, so you didn't hit it with the hub, then you stop and the wagon step was right over the middle, was right up close. I've seen lots of those, but
Perhaps that came from the wing house down in Dover when they,
it may
they
have.
tore that down.
It may well have.
So
I don't really
maybe
know
Peter
anything.
Wing gave it, that might have been from that.
I said, I don't really know anything about it, but it's quite possible that it did. But those were, there used to be one of those, the cast iron one. There were a lot of cast iron ones too, as well as cut in stone. There used to be one in front of where the Pied Piper is now, and that was a drugstore up there, and the old building was burned. And you can see it in Tom Beaumont's office. He's got a picture of that old drugstore that was taken from a postcard. This was just a small picture hanging up in his waiting room up there. If you ever in there, you can see it up there. Someone who took the picture stood in the highway almost up as far as opposite Bill Tripp's front porch, just above Friendly Lane there, and took it down through, and you see the drugstore and the house that was next to it, and where Charlotte's is now, and down the street like that. That's about as far down as you can see. And that horse block was out there. That one was kind of semicircle like that. But the reason for that, as I say, when they drove up with the wagon, you could get real close because the hub didn't hit on the corner when you went in. See? Sometimes the horse didn't go exactly where you thought he was going. If you get too close, like with the car, take a chunk off the garage door. So, but they were very nice thing to have because wagon steps were quite high, especially for the ladies. But that may well be that.
I think if I remember.
Well, I could ramble worse than anybody else. Ellen?
I just want to mention the Milestone. That's the name of the Millbrook Yearbook, isn't it? The Milestone, isn't it still? And that
Wasn't
was.
that the name of the Marshall Estate too?
Yes, they named it Milestone on account of the milestone being right there in front of the house.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where it was.
See, folks, don't you think it would make a good project for my kids, the Yorkers, to go around in the summertime and see all they could find and take a picture of them?
Yeah.
Because, you know, those are
They're
the kids
disappearing.
that have formed this historical branch of New York State Historical Society. And they had the kindness to name it after me. But I think I ought to somehow lead them into some kind of research. And it sounds as though it would be fun to go around and look for those milestones. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think there's very many of them visible around here anymore, Louise.
But even so, just one, around Dover and those places.
There's one across, I think, from the Silver Horn on 44.
Is that right?
Maybe there is. There used to be one across from South Road on Route 44,
Yes.
and it was there when we came to Millbrook in 71, it was there, and I noticed about a year or so ago that it's not there any longer.
Disappeared.
But,
Washington.
but the Cary Arboretum, I believe, owns that property.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, they were doing a lot of clearing and cutting of brush, and I don't know if they removed it then or whatever happened to it, but it was there when we came in 71, but it's no longer there, and it was a little bit hard to see because there was quite a bit of brush around it. Now all the
Yeah.
brush is gone, but so is the milestone.
That's too bad it isn't there.
Yes, it is, Carrington, but they don't need them anymore.
Well, maybe the Cary Arboretum actually took it to preserve it or something. I don't, I would have no idea what happened to it, but it's no longer there.
I know just about what
Yeah,
it was.
and I believe about the class of 74, I think it was, at Millbrook had a picture of that in their yearbook. It was that was the one that they took a picture of to call it in the Millbrook High School yearbook,
Oh,
because the Millbrook High School yearbook is called a milestone. And
Oh, I
they
didn't
used
know
that
that.
one to take a picture of. I think it was like the class of 74 or 75. And they took a picture of that milestone on 44 across from South Road.
That's about the only one that was left. As you say, Curdy, I think there is one up top of the Silver Horn.
Yeah, there is.
You know, the funny part of it is, a lot of us, we go up and down these roads back and forth day in and day out, and we don't see anything. If somebody says, well, there's a certain thing there alongside the road, been there 40 years, I never saw it. A lot of people say, well, I didn't see it. You've been by it every day. It's really true. So I think one of your projects with your kids, Louise, I don't know what sort of program they're involved in, but one of the things, if you can impress on them to really notice what's right under their noses,
yes.
they'd be doing something that most of us didn't do. Didn't do. You can have fun with the kids. I used to have fun with them. They'd come in the store, and they'd walk down, say from Alden Place down to the corner. I'd say to them, that house up on the corner there, what color is that? I don't know. They walk by it every day, 3-4 times. They don't know what color it is. So if you tell them you go past the greenhouse and the next gray one is where you're heading for, they don't know where the greenhouse is. They never know. But I think it's a thing that we could do to young people, is to try to get them to be alert, notice things. And there's like the historical marker that's up by the Nine Partners Meeting House up there. Hundreds of people don't know it's there. They drive right by it every day.
Well,
There's another one right there by
Another
the
down by the
golf course.
They drive right by it. So, I mean, if we can have the kids go look them up and see what it says on it, be a good idea. They're not too far away, something like that. I don't know what kind of projects they're involved in, but they've been promoting in the schools local history. And I don't know what resources they've got. You got involved in that, Ellen, up at Marist, did you, when they first started, the resource material that was going to be available?
I attended that regional history program 2 summers ago, but they really didn't do anything for the elementary school children. It was just for ourselves.
I thought that's where they were going to do it, like in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade.
They may have. They did not at that program. They do have a regional history section of their library, which I guess is open to anybody who is interested. And the following September, they ran another regional history program. They had quite a few elementary school teachers involved in that, or took the course. I didn't get involved again, but the summer that I went, it was not geared for actually, they were just telling us, I think, what was available, but it wasn't actually geared for teachers.
I had a call from one of our teachers here a long time ago when that first got going. Could they come, get a hold of me and talk about Millbrook and so on? Sure,